If you are a Linux user or learning the Linux and ever wondered what is this cd forward slash, what is the meaning of this forward slash, why we are able to enter into this location called forward slash, is this a directory? And also if I do ls in this location, there are so many folders already present in this directory. What are the purpose of these directories? So in this video, all this confusion will be cleared. Alright, so today we are diving into the Linux file system, a crucial component for anyone using or planning to use Linux. In this video, we will explore what the file system is, how it is structured. So whether you are a system admin or a casual Linux user, understanding the Linux file system can greatly enhance your mastery on Linux. Okay, so let's start and understand what a file system is. Here is a basic definition, although if I explain you in very short and simple words, so a file system is a method or a way an operating system uses to manage the data or files or directories on a server. Okay, so whether you are using a Windows or Linux, right? So whatever you see is in the form of files and directories. Maybe it is an audio file, video file, or the text document, the script, or executable file, etc. Right? So what are these? These are the data, and the way to manage these datas and files and everything is a file system. When we are talking about the file system, it stores data in hierarchy. So hierarchies of directories and file. So in file system, it includes the file, directories, related permissions, etc. Let's talk about the types of file system. So depending upon the way and the method how an operating system manages the data, it could be of different types. So here are some examples like ext3, ext4, that is the extended 3, extended 4. Extended 4 is the, of course, the latest version. XFS extends file systems, and especially we're talking about the extended 3 XFS. So these type of file systems are mostly used in the Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, CentOS, Red Hat like distribution, which is the most popular distribution. I hope so you heard of. And one more example I have added, that is a BTRFS, B tree file systems being used by the OpenSUSE. So we have just seen different types of file system, but on our server, which file system is being used, how we can check. So here are some commands. By using that, we can check it. So here is my Linux terminal, and currently I am using the CentOS distribution using the virtual machine. Now, if I want to check my file system, so I will simply use lsblk-f and I will get something like this. Okay, so you can see from in this column fs type, that is the file system type. So you will see a very familiar term, that is the xfs. So that means we are currently using the xfs file system. There are some other types, that is the swap, like lvm, etc., vfat, virtual file allocation table, etc. So that is being used by the system. Okay, but the main partition of this server, okay, for like this, the root one. Okay, so if you also see the fs available, so the majority part, that is the 31 gigs, the 18.8 gigs c, so it is using the xfs, where we use for our general purposes, like creating the files and managing the directories, database, etc. There is one more command we can use, df-ts. Okay, let's try that also. df-th, ct is capital. So from here also you will get a more readable view and easy to understand. For example, the file systems, that is like the partition, and the types, the file system type we have allotted, like the HDA2, HDA1, etc., and on which directory it is assigned to. For example, for the home directory, 20 gigs is assigned and XFS file system is being used. There is some temporary file system used by the system for their purposes and all, managing files, etc. Yeah, that's it. But overall, you can identify the XFS, the main file system XFS is being used. That's it. So as we seen, there are different types of file system. So if you are thinking that which file system we should use, which file system is best for me or for us, I mean, it totally depends upon your requirement. For example, let me show you a small comparison between the XFS versus extended 4. So for example, if you are talking about the XFS, it is optimized for large files and volumes, okay, offering superior performance and scalability. And if we're talking about the extended 4, so it performs well across various file size but less efficient with extremely large file. So it totally depends on your requirement now. For example, if you are planning to deploy an application which will be dealing with a very large size files, so you know it that XFS can handle it better. But if you want the more fast efficient thing, but of course the less size file, so you can use the extended 4. So it totally depends upon the case to case basis. Now let's talk about the file system structure. As we already seen in the definition that file system stores data in hierarchy of directories and files, right? So if there is a hierarchy, there must be a starting point, right? So file system structure of a Linux based operating system looks like this. Okay, so it starts with the root directory, which is represented by the /. Okay, so what is this / or root directory? So the Linux file system starts at the root directory, okay, denoted by the single / from which all the other files and directories branch out. Okay, so in short, the hierarchy starts at / right now using the Linux terminal. So the / is really a directory. Okay, so for example, as we know, we use the cd command to change the directory. If you use cd and simply /, so you will see that right now you are under the root directory. So that means, so this is the starting point of the Linux file system. Okay, and if I do the simply ls in this directory, so you will see a lot of directories like the by default or predefined directories inside this directory. If you even do pwd, you will see you are currently inside the / directory, that is the root directory. And as we already seen in this diagram, it starts at root directory and there are so many directories branch out, that is like the bin, boot, dev, etc, lib, etc. Now let's quickly understand the purpose of each directory one by one. So let's start with the bin directory / bin. That means it is inside the root directory. So as we can see on the terminal, I am currently inside the root directory and there is a bin folder I can see. Okay, the purpose is it contains essential user binaries such as common commands like ls, cp, etc. So whatever the commands we are executing right now, for example ls, pwd, everything, okay, so these commands are also kind of a script or executable files and whose information or whose code is present inside the bin directory. So we can also go inside the bin directory like this. And right now pwd, I am inside the / bin. If I simply do ls command to see the files inside this directory, so there are so many executables, binaries files for every commands. So the commands which we use, example, you can see the zip command, the ns lookup command, and you can also see the ls command and so on. So all the types of commands you use, its binaries executable files is present inside this directory. So our next directory is /etc, which holds system configuration files. So if you want to make some changes or want to see the currently configured property related to user, networks, services, system applications, you can find inside the etc folder. Let's suppose I can show you an example of the users. Okay, let's suppose we are managing the so many users on the server, and if I want to see the information related to them, I can simply use cat etc and there's a file named password. So if I hit enter, you can see some more information. For example, there is a user named Paul and its user ID, the group ID, its default shell, etc, and the home directory and so on. Let's say I want to see the more information about the operating system I am using. I can use cat etc os-release this file, so I can get more information about the distribution and operating systems I'm currently using. So if I go inside the etc folder and simply do ls, you will see so many directories and files present for different purposes. Okay, so we have covered few of them, and you can also see some configuration related to cron jobs, the network, the system, securities, and so on. Next directory is /home, which contains the personal directories of all the users. Let's say this Linux server being shared by multiple users. So each user will has its own personal directory. Let's say if I go inside the cd home, okay, if I simply do ls. So let's say if I currently have 3 different users, Jenkins, Nick and Paul. So each has its own directory, and inside which they can use and keep their personal directories and data. So if I simply do cd, I will directly go inside my home directory. If I do the pwd, so I'm currently inside my home directory, that is the home underscore Paul, because I am currently logged in as a Paul. Okay, so this is my home directory where I will keep all my personal information or the files and folders, etc. So the next is /root, which is the home directory for the root user or the admin user. Okay, for the general user like these, right, their personal home directories are present inside the /home directory. But as the root user, the admin user is the super user or the special user, right, its personal or the home directory is present inside the /root. So let's try to switch the directory cd /root. Okay, so it is a permission deny. Why? Reason is, see, as we already know, it's a admin space, it's a super user space, so there may be some critical or very sensitive file which is important uh, from the security point of view, right? So that is the reason general user don't have the permission. Right now I have the access to the root user, so I can do su hyphen. Okay, so right now I am logged in as a root user. So now I can go inside my home directory, that is the /root. Okay, and inside this directory a root user can keep their files. So the next is /var, where variable data such as logs and databases are stored. So variable data, okay, so for example, if you want to check some logs related to your application or to your system, etc., you can find inside this directory. Okay, let's try cd var, okay, and do ls. So you can see a lot of folders related to the db and some cache or some variable data being used by the system, etc. Okay, so but the most important, the folder or the location is the log folder. Okay, if I do go inside the log, okay, ls, so you will see the logs related to so many services like the mailings logs, the boot log means the when the system is starting, the the logs related to it, the cron jobs, the mails and the messages. Okay, so messages is like the basic one, so you will start seeing everything, and troubleshooting is starting with the messages log. Like if I do messages, you can see the lot of information what is going on related to the different things and so on. So okay, so it is really very helpful from the troubleshoot point of view and checking your application and the system's logs. Okay, if we talk about the /temp, okay, so this is a temporary files created by the systems end user. So if I go inside the cd temp folder, okay, so I can see some temporary files generated by the system for their own uses. So let's cover the remaining directories as well, like /boot, which holds the files needed for the system boot up, okay, including the Linux kernel and initial RAM disk image, bootloader configurations like grub. Okay, let's try cd /boot. Okay, you will see some files like this, including the initial RAM, file system, etc., which is required by the system to boot or start the server. So the next is /dev, which contains the device files, which helps to access the hardware devices such as hard drives, sound drives, etc. For example, if you are attaching external hard drive, etc., in order to interact with that device, that is the external device, right? The necessary tools or files for that purpose is present inside the /dev. Very simple. The next is /lib or lib64. So these directories contains the essential shared libraries and kernel modules that are needed to boot the system and run the commands in the root file system. And if we talk about the lib64 directories, exist on the system that support 64-bit application. So the next is /media. This is the mount point for removable media such as the USB drives, CD-ROMs, etc. So basically, media directory provides you the easy accessibility to these drives. So for example, as soon as you put in the USB drives, you can start using the data inside it. So the next is /mnt. We can also call it as the mount point. Okay, this is similar to media directory, although this is a traditional mount point where system admin can mount temporary file system while using or configuring them, right? So you can visualize it as the temporary parking space. For example, if you are going to a store, you can temporarily park your car outside the store for some time. So for example, if I need to mount any external hard disk or space for the temporary basis, I can use this space. So next is /opt, which is used for the installation of add-on application software packages. So large software packages that are not part of the default installation can be placed here to avoid the cluttering the system directories. Okay, so we do have the opt directory as well. Let's see if there is something. Yes. So the next is /proc. We can also see here, see proc directory is there. So this is a virtual or dynamic directory as it's only exists in memory. Okay, and it does not use disk space, so it is not present on the actual disk or physical space, right? So that's why we call it a virtual or dynamic directory. And what is the purpose? It contains the information about system resources, hardware and running process. So the next is /run, which is a temporary file system that stores transient state files like the process IDs, log files, since it is cleared and recreated at every boot. Suppose you started an application, a process will be created and its associated process ID as well. So as we know that everything in Linux is in the form of files and all, so it will be stored in this area /run. Let's quickly see inside the proc folder cd proc. Okay, you will see so many files and all. As we know, all these files are dynamically present on the memory but not the space, and it also contains the memory information so that you can also see it. Let's say, you know, there's so many files like file systems and mem info, md state. So you can simply read it mem info. So you will see all the information about the memory, how much total memory allocated, how much is free, available, buffer, cache. So the next is /sbin, which is also called as system binaries. So which contains the binary executable files that are mostly needed by the system admin. So these include the system management commands like fdisk, shutdown, IP, etc. So the next is /srv, and it contains the data which servers hosted on the systems may need. Example, web pages served by a web server. In the case like web server hosted on the server. Next is /sys. Okay, it is similar to the /proc. This is another virtual file system that provide an interface to the kernel. Okay, it contains information and settings about the system's devices, drivers and some kernel features. So this is basically used by the kernel and used as an interface, and of course it is also the virtual file system like the proc one. And the last one is /user USR, which is considered the second hierarchy because it contains all the user applications and a variety of other things for day-to-day operations. okay, including libraries, documentation, and much more. Subdirectories include the user bin, user sbin, user local, user share, among others. So if you refer this diagram, okay, you can see the user directory, and it is also called as a secondary hierarchy because another hierarchy is, created from the user directory. Alright, so this is all about this video. If you found this video helpful, so please hit that like button and subscribe the channel. Thanks for watching.